Hey guys, tonight we begin with something quiet. No dramatic conquests, no royal scandals, just the soft, uneventful hum of lives long past. We'll walk down dimly lit streets where shopkeepers close their shutters, listen to the gentle clink of pottery in modest kitchens, and drift through the calm silence between one century and the next. Nothing urgent happens here. That's the beauty of it. This is history's slow lane where even time seems to pause. So, lay back, close your eyes and let the ordinary lull you into rest. Tonight, the past is your lullaby. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I am doing here. And let me know the comments, where are you watching from, and what time are you watching. It's always incredible to see who's joining us from across the world. Now dim the lights and close your fan so that you enjoy this episode fully when the world goes quiet. As the sun dipped below the horizon in the ancient world, life did not stop. The busy sounds of commerce faded, the hammering of tools, the cries of market sellers, and the roar of public squares gave way to quieter routines. Lamps were lit with care. Hearths were stirred one last time. And in that hush, families gathered, cities softened, and a different rhythm emerged. Night was not silent. It was simply slower. Why night mattered in ancient times? Night in the pre-modern world held a strange duality. It was a time of peace and yet a time of risk. Without electricity, darkness was a force. It influenced sleep patterns, limited travel, and structured religion, superstition, and community. People planned their lives around daylight, and anything done after dusk was deliberate. Whether it was star watching, spiritual rituals, or quiet conversations, nighttime mattered deeply. Night in ancient Babylon, a city of ziggurats and hanging gardens, the evening brought with it relief from the desert heat. People climbed onto flat rooftops to sleep under the stars. Oil lamps flickered in doorways. Temple priests, their duties never ending, performed low-voiced hymns to moon gods. In the alleys, street vendors sold their last bread. The city murmured, not roared. The scribes and stargazers of Mesopotamia, in dimly lit rooms, Babylonian scribes, etched cuneiform into soft clay tablets. Many recorded the stars. Astronomy was not separate from religion. Stargazing was divine communication. With crude but careful calculations, they mapped lunar movements, preparing calendars and interpreting omens. The work was quiet, patient, and repetitive. It was also essential. The night watchmen and thieves of Erewhile most slept. Some stayed awake. In the city of Abraham, a small force of night watchmen patrolled the narrow streets. Carrying clubs or torches, they called out the hours and watched for trouble. Though crime was rare, thieves did operate in shadows, seeking unattended goods. These patrols were the earliest echo of modern policing. Sunset over Thebes. Night in ancient Egypt, as the sun sank beyond the Nile, the people of Thebes ended their labors. Clay lamps were lit using embers from cooking fires. Egyptians feared the dark less than others, thanks to beliefs in protective deities. They offered prayers to household gods, adjusted linen garments for comfort, and drank fermented barley brew before resting on reed mats. Dream magic and night gods in Egypt, sleep, was not just a rest. It was an entryway to dreams. Egyptians kept amulets under pillows to protect against nightmares. Gods like Bes, small and fierce, stood guard over the sleeping. Dreams were thought to contain messages from the divine. Some even consulted dream interpreters who catalogued symbols on papyrus scrolls. Dinner and darkness in ancient Athens, Athenians dined late. As shadows lengthened, the wealthy reclined in androns for symposiums. Wine, mixed with water, was poured by slaves. Discussions meandered from philosophy to poetry. Candles and shallow oil lamps cast long shadows. Outside, in the agora, only the soft hoot of an owl or echo of sandals interrupted the hush. The shadows of Athenian streets. Though Athens was proud of its order, the night brought ambiguity. Women and children stayed indoors. Men walked carefully, avoiding dark alleys. Robbers lurked, but so did informants and wandering philosophers. Occasional torch-lit processions for Dionysus or Artemis disrupted the quiet with song and drum. A Roman night begins with a bath. Public bathhouses stayed open past sundown. Lit with wall torches, they were places to wash, gossip, and linger. Tepidariums and caldariums echoed with soft conversation. After bathing, citizens often strolled through gardens or stopped by taverns. Rome, always alive, slowed only slightly after dark. Sleeping in the Roman insula in apartment-style housing, people huddled into small rooms with simple furnishings. Noise travelled easily. The creak of wooden stairs, the mumble of neighbours, and the occasional clatter from the floor. Above filled the quiet. Oil lamps smoked. Mice skittered. Still, it was home. Midnight markets and nocturnal Rome. Some Roman trades thrived at night. Bakers began before dawn to prepare for morning sales. Markets flickered with early activity. Wine cellars kept doors ajar for stragglers. In wealthier homes, slaves laboured silently, sweeping courtyards or refilling lamps. Edo nights, lanterns and courtyards. In Edo period, Japan, night fell gently. Paper lanterns lit narrow streets. Rain gutters dripped. Merchants counted coins behind shuttered stalls. In small gardens, frogs croaked and bamboo creaked. Family homes closed their sliding doors. Tatami mats were laid out, futons unfurled. Stillness settled. The floating world. Night, pleasures of Japan. The pleasure districts like Yoshiwara came alive at night. Geisha prepared tea, played shamisen, and conversed softly. Poetry was composed. The scent of incense filled the air. Time stretched, nothing rushed. Outside, rickshaws glided silently past. The silent streets of medieval London curfew bells rang at sunset. Doors were bolted, torches extinguished. Londoners slept early, but not soundly. The streets echoed with the creak of carts, the splash of chamber pots and distant howls of dogs. Night watchmen called the hours. Rats rustled in hay. Church bells and night curfews in Europe. Throughout Europe, cities rang bells to signal curfew. Gates closed. Priests offered vespers. Monks retreated to candlelit cells. Farmers, long asleep, dreamt of fields. The silence was punctuated only by rustling wind or the peal of midnight chimes. Desert nights, Bedouin camps. After dusk, the desert, once scorching, turned cool. Tents flapped gently. Families gathered around low fires, boiling tea and roasting dates. Stories were told under constellations. The sand, cold and vast, offered solitude. Camels groaned. Wind whispered over dunes, the moon above. Tenochtitlan Aztec priests watched the moon from atop temples. Markets closed, but music continued. Dancers moved by firelight. Cornmeal cakes were shared. Offerings were made to lunar deities. Canoes glided over still lake water, silent but purposeful. When the world slept differently, sleep cycles in the past. People once slept in two phases. First sleep began after sunset and lasted a few hours. Then came a waking period. Quiet thought, prayer, even sex. Second sleep carried them until dawn. This segmented sleep, once normal, has vanished with modernity. Closing. Sleep. Beneath the ancient sky, every ancient city had its own night, its own hush. Yet across the world, people lay beneath the same stars. They whispered, prayed, listened, and dreamed. Tonight we share that stillness. The dark is not empty, it holds our oldest rhythms. Long before electricity, nights were lit by simple flames. Oil lamps made from clay or bronze burned slowly, casting a warm, flickering glow. The light was soft, never harsh. Shadows stretched and contracted, creating a peaceful, almost hypnotic atmosphere. Families would gather around these small beacons, sharing quiet moments, telling stories, or simply sitting in companionable silence. The subtle dance of light and dark shaped how ancient people experienced their homes and cities after sundown, lending nights a tender, intimate quality. Although night meant rest for most, some tasks remained essential. Caretakers fed animals. In the stables, ensured fires still burned in hearths or carried water from wells for morning use. Craftsmen might repair tools by lamplight, and watchmen patrolled city walls to keep the peace. These chores were performed slowly and quietly, with a sense of mindfulness that came from working in darkness. The night stillness seemed to make these small labors feel more deliberate, weaving a rhythm of calm productivity between waking and sleeping. The night wasn't silent, it was filled with subtle sounds. In the countryside, the croaking of frogs, the chirping of crickets, and the rustle of leaves in the wind created a gentle, natural orchestra. In towns and cities, distant dog barks, the soft footfalls of night watchmen, or the faint clink of closing shutters punctuated the quiet. These sounds, unlike the harsh noises of the day, felt almost soothing, reminders of life continuing gently. To ancient ears, they were comforting companions, lulling the mind toward rest. While most vendors closed shop at sunset, some stalls stayed open to serve late-night customers. Bakers would finish their ovens, selling fresh bread to early risers or night workers. Fishmongers wrapped their catch carefully under flickering lanterns, and spice sellers laid out small bowls of fragrant powders. These late markets were slow, quiet affairs with whispered haggling and soft footsteps on cobblestones. The mingled smells of baking bread, salt water, and dried herbs hung lightly in the air, creating an atmosphere of understated life and persistence, even after dark. In homes, around the ancient world, the approach of night meant bedtime for children. Mothers or grandparents often wrapped soft cloths around little ones, rocking them gently while whispering simple stories or lullabies. Toys were placed beside pillows, hand-carved figures, tiny cloth dolls or small wooden animals. These moments of care, repeated night after night, built a sense of safety and comfort. The ritual of bedtime was slow and tender, marking a gentle transition from the bustle of the day to the peace of sleep. Night was often seen as a sacred time. In many cultures, temples remained lit with flickering lamps, while priests and monks chanted prayers or performed quiet rituals. The cool darkness was believed to bring humans closer to the divine or the spirits of ancestors. Some rites involved midnight vigils or offerings made under the moon. The stillness of night created a space for reflection, humility, and connection. In the hush between day and dawn, spirituality found its most gentle expression. Traveling after dark was rare but sometimes necessary. Without modern illumination, travelers relied on the stars and natural landmarks to guide them. Ancient mariners read constellations to navigate vast seas, while desert nomads used the shape and brightness of the moon to find their way across dunes. Roads were avoided unless well known and safe, and journeys were slow and cautious. This careful movement under the cover of night was a quiet dance between human knowledge and the natural world. Night carried its own palette of scents. The cool earth released a damp, musky aroma. Flowers that bloomed only at night, like jasmine or night-blooming cereus, filled the air with delicate perfumes. Burning oils and incense used in homes and temples added a warm, spicy note. The smell of wood smoke from fires or distant hearths drifted lazily on the breeze. These fragrances were subtle but evocative, grounding people in their surroundings and providing a sensory anchor as they settled down for sleep. Night was the perfect time for storytelling. As families gathered around small fires or lamps, elders recited legends and myths, tales explaining the stars, seasons, and human nature. These stories were slow, rhythmic, and full of repetition, making them soothing as well as instructive. The darkness added a layer of mystery and imagination, allowing listeners to see the flickering flames and hear the echoes of ancient wisdom woven into the quiet night. As the night deepened and approached its end, the first faint glimmers of dawn began to appear. Pale light spread slowly across rooftops and hills, and birds softly began their morning songs. The world prepared itself to wake again. Night's quiet work was done. Rest had been granted, dreams had unfolded, and the hush of darkness gave way to the promise of a new day. This slow, gentle return was a natural rhythm, a quiet cycle repeated across centuries. Long after dawn's first light, the day would begin to unfold slowly. But in many ancient places, mornings themselves carried a quiet charm. The soft haze of early sunlight filtered through mist or dust, turning streets and fields into muted, gentle spaces. Farmers began tending crops while the earth still held dew, their movements deliberate and unhurried. The natural world moved with quiet grace in these hours, reminding all that even beginnings could be soft and calm. As sunlight warmed the earth, many ancient homes featured open courtyards or gardens where morning chores took place. Here, the gentle rustling of leaves and the faint drip of water from clay pots created a delicate soundtrack. Women and men would wash clothes by hand, grind grain into flour, or prepare food in simple kitchens. The rhythms of these daily tasks were slow and repetitive, often accompanied by the quiet murmur of conversation or the occasional laughter of children, grounding life in a peaceful routine. Across ancient cities, craftsmen and artisans prepared their workshops in the early hours. Blacksmiths carefully checked their fires, adjusting coals to the perfect glow, while potters shaped clay on wheels with steady hands. These crafts required patience and precision, skills honed over years of practice. The focus and calm dedication of these workers was a form of meditation in itself, their slow, rhythmic motions setting a steady tempo to the day. In some parts of the ancient world, water management was a vital part of daily life, especially in arid regions. Early morning hours were often used to inspect irrigation channels, aqueducts, and cisterns. Caretakers checked for blockages or leaks, ensuring that precious water flowed steadily to fields and homes. The sound of water trickling through stone channels, combined with the slow, careful work of maintenance, created a soothing, almost hypnotic atmosphere, a quiet testament to human ingenuity and patience. Markets in ancient towns and cities would begin to stir with gentle activity as vendors laid out their goods. The sights and smells were rich but never overwhelming, fresh fruits glistening with morning dew, piles of fragrant spices, freshly baked bread cooling on cloths, and carefully wrapped bundles of herbs. The hum of early shoppers was soft, full of polite greetings and quiet bargaining. These marketplaces were places where community and routine intersected in a calm, steady rhythm. As morning unfolded, religious rituals often marked the start of the day. Priests and worshippers visited temples, offering prayers and sacrifices to gods or ancestors. The sounds were muted, soft chanting, the gentle ringing of small bells, the careful lighting of incense. These acts were performed with reverence and slow deliberation, infusing the morning with a sense of sacred calm and purpose. The rituals connected the spiritual and the earthly in a quiet moment of balance. In rural villages, the early hours were often when animals were tended to most closely. Shepherds would lead flocks to pasture under soft sunlight, moving slowly to avoid startling the creatures. Chickens were let out of coops, their quiet clucks mingling with the gentle rustling of grass. This slow, peaceful start for both humans and animals set a tone of harmony and care, an unspoken understanding of shared rhythms between species. Education and training in ancient societies often began early, but in a measured way. Young apprentices learned trades or skills by watching elders and practicing slowly. Lessons were rarely rushed. Patience was valued as much as skill. Whether learning to weave cloth, carve wood, or recite poetry, the pace was gentle, ensuring knowledge was absorbed thoroughly. This measured approach was a quiet form of respect for the passage of time and the gradual unfolding of mastery. As the sun climbed higher, the pace of the day often increased, but even so, many activities retained a certain calmness. Meals were prepared with care, using fresh ingredients gathered in the morning. Cooking was a slow art, grinding spices, simmering stews over low fires, baking bread in clay ovens. The smells that filled homes were comforting and familiar, weaving a sensory fabric that wrapped the household in warmth and sustenance. Throughout the day, some ancient cities maintained watchmen or guards who kept a steady, calm vigil over their surroundings. These individuals moved deliberately along walls or through public squares, their presence reassuring rather than alarming. Their steady footsteps, the soft clank of armor, and the occasional low call to colleagues punctuated the day's rhythms with a subtle sense of order and safety. As afternoon approached, many people sought moments of rest or quiet reflection. In some cultures, this meant retreating to shaded gardens or cool interiors where soft breezes stirred the air. The sound of flowing water from fountains or streams provided a soothing backdrop. These pauses were integral to daily life, offering space to recharge and appreciate the slower rhythms amidst busyness. Art and music were often woven into the daily fabric in subtle ways. Instrumental melodies, played softly on flutes, lyres, or drums, drifted through homes and public spaces. Visual arts, painting, sculpture, or intricate weaving progressed with patient hands. These creative expressions were not rushed spectacles, but gentle, ongoing processes that enriched the atmosphere and offered quiet enjoyment. By late afternoon, many people engaged in social visits or communal gatherings. These occasions were marked by polite conversation, shared food, and a relaxed pace. Stories were exchanged slowly, laughter was gentle, and the company offered a soothing sense of connection. These moments strengthened community bonds through calm, deliberate interactions. As evening approached again, homes were prepared for the return of night. Lamps were filled with oil, fires stoked gently to provide warmth, and tables set for supper. The soft clinking of pottery and the quiet murmur of family members created a comforting atmosphere of domestic tranquility. Evening meals were often simple but nourishing, enjoyed slowly and without hurry. In some places, the evening was marked by quiet public events, philosophical discussions, poetry readings, or theatrical performances held in open-air theatres or private courtyards. These gatherings were subdued and reflective rather than boisterous, offering a gentle end to the day and stimulating thoughtful contemplation. The cycle of night and day was central to ancient life, a slow, steady dance that balanced activity with rest, light with darkness. Every moment, from the flicker of a lamp to the soft call of birds at dawn, carried meaning and rhythm. This slow, deliberate flow shaped not only routines, but also the very way ancient people understood their world, an enduring reminder that history's most boring moments often hold the deepest calm and beauty. As dusk settled deeper into the sky, towns and cities would gradually grow quieter, the last faint glow of day slipping away. People finished their work with slow, careful motions, mindful of the approaching darkness. The fading sunlight cast long shadows across cobblestone streets, turning familiar scenes into softened silhouettes. This gradual dimming invited a gentle winding down, a collective sigh of relief that the day's labors were nearly done. Many households began lighting their lamps, carefully filling oil reservoirs and adjusting wicks to produce a soft, steady flame. The scent of burning oil, a mixture of earthiness and warmth, soon filled rooms, comforting and familiar. This ritual was repeated across countless homes, each flickering light a small beacon against the night. The gentle glow seemed to invite introspection and quiet conversation, drawing families close together. In some cultures, the evening was the time for communal baths or washing rituals. Large ceramic basins or stone baths were filled with warm water, scented with herbs or oils. People moved slowly, cleansing themselves with care, sometimes accompanied by soft humming or whispered prayers. These moments of purification were both physical and symbolic, washing away the dust and fatigue of the day and preparing the body and mind for restful sleep. As darkness fully embraced the world, streets and public spaces emptied, save for a few late travelers and watchmen making their rounds. The night air cooled, carrying faint aromas of earth and distant fires. The occasional call of a night bird or the rustle of leaves stirred the stillness. These subtle sounds became part of the nighttime rhythm, a delicate soundtrack that reminded all of the living world beyond sight. Late at night, some markets specialized in goods for the next day, or rare items that could only be acquired after dusk. These nocturnal vendors operated quietly and discreetly, catering to a few who preferred or needed to conduct their affairs under the cover of darkness. The exchange was slow, the atmosphere hushed, filled with the faint scent of spices and fresh produce. Such scenes were rare but added a layer of depth to the city's nightlife. Ancient inns and taverns provided spaces for travelers to rest, and local folk to gather softly after sunset. The light here was dim and warm, often from a central hearth or a few scattered lamps. Conversations were muted and slow-paced, laughter rare but genuine. The smell of roasted meats, fresh bread, and spiced wine lingered in the air, blending with the sounds of quiet footsteps and the occasional clink of mugs. These refugees offered a brief escape and a sense of community under the calm night sky. For those without a home or traveling far from familiar places, the night presented challenges. Travelers would often seek shelter in safe, well-known spots, under arches near city gates, or in temple courtyards. They moved cautiously, mindful of dangers both human and natural. fires were kept low and small, their warmth barely disturbing the stillness. These quiet, vulnerable moments were part of the broader tapestry of life after dark. In many ancient societies, the night was closely linked to dreams and divination. Dream interpreters or soothsayers might be consulted early in the morning to explain the visions seen during sleep. Dreams were seen as messages from gods or the subconscious, guiding decisions or revealing hidden truths. This belief gave sleep and night a mystical importance, casting the hours of darkness as a threshold between the mundane and the divine. Some cities maintained elaborate systems of watch and guard duty through the night. Watchmen, often appointed from among the citizens, carried staffs or simple weapons and wore reflective badges or emblems. Their slow, measured footsteps and occasional low calls reassured the community. The role required patience and alertness, balancing vigilance with the monotony of long hours. These guardianship routines formed an invisible web of protection that allowed the city to rest safely. The night sky itself was a vast canvas of wonder. Without modern light pollution, stars shone brightly, their constellations known intimately by ancient observers. Families and communities gathered occasionally to point out the stories written in the stars, the hunters, the great rivers, the mythical creatures. These celestial narratives provided not only navigation, but also cultural identity and comfort, linking the heavens to everyday life in quiet, timeless ways. In quieter rural areas, farmers sometimes worked under moonlight, especially during harvest seasons. The silver glow cast sharp contrasts and long shadows over fields heavy with grain. These nocturnal labors were slow and steady, paced by the rhythms of the land and sky. The cool night air eased the strain of daytime heat, and the workers' steady breathing and rustling tools created a soft symphony of nighttime industry. Throughout the night, the ambient sounds of nature continued to weave their gentle tapestry. The distant howl of wolves, the rustle of nocturnal creatures in underbrush, the soft splash of fish jumping in quiet ponds, all these sounds formed a living, breathing backdrop. Far from frightening, these noises often brought reassurance, connecting people with the pulse of life beyond the walls of their homes. Ancient nighttime medicine and healing practices were also carried out with care and reverence. Healers prepared herbal remedies by candlelight, grinding dried plants into powders or mixing poultices. Some treatments required night's cool air or specific phases of the moon to be most effective. These slow, deliberate processes were as much about ritual as science, inviting patience and trust in the natural cycles that governed health and illness. Philosophers and scholars sometimes used the night hours for contemplation and writing. The silence and solitude allowed thoughts to deepen and take shape without distraction. Scrolls or tablets were copied painstakingly by lamplight, ideas recorded for future generations. This quiet intellectual work was slow and methodical, a form of meditation that bridged past, present, and future in the stillness of night. Ancient musical instruments like flutes, lyres, and drums were often played softly in the evening, either in private chambers or small gatherings. These melodies were gentle and repetitive, designed to soothe rather than excite. The rhythm of the music mimicked natural cycles, the rise and fall of breath, the heartbeat, offering listeners a calming passage into restfulness. At night, many animals exhibited their own unique behaviors. Nocturnal creatures like owls, bats, and moths became more active, moving silently through trees and fields. Their presence was a subtle reminder that life did not cease with sunset, but shifted in tone and pace. Humans observed these changes with curiosity and respect, often weaving animal behavior into folklore and myth. The slow rotation of the earth created a continuous cycle of darkness and light that shaped every aspect of ancient life. People learned to read and respect these patterns, planning work, rest, and celebration according to the sun and moon. This deep attunement to natural rhythms fostered a sense of harmony and balance, a quiet acceptance of life's ebb and flow. As dawn approached once more, the faint light touched the horizon, signaling a new day. The night's calm gave way to stirring birdsong and the gradual awakening of the world. This daily transition was a comforting cycle, steady, reliable, and deeply human, offering rest and renewal in an endless loop. The quiet of early morning often brought with it a sense of renewal. The first light touched gently on dew-covered fields and rooftops, revealing the faint outlines of nature slowly waking. Farmers checked their tools and animals with deliberate care, beginning the day with calm intention. The softness of these moments was a quiet celebration of life's steady rhythms, unhurried and sure. Inside many ancient homes, breakfast was a simple affair. Grain porridges, fresh fruits, and mild cheeses were prepared slowly, often by hand. The sounds of grinding grain or the soft chopping of herbs blended with the low murmur of family members rising and readying themselves. These early meals were less about haste and more about setting a peaceful tone for the day ahead. In some societies, the morning was a time for spiritual cleansing. Ritual baths or washing of hands and faces were performed with patience and care. Water was drawn from wells or rivers in clay jars, poured slowly over skin as prayers or blessings were whispered. This routine connected the physical and spiritual, creating a bridge between night's rest and the day's work. Daily markets began to stir gently, with vendors arranging their wares, baskets of fresh vegetables, dried herbs, and handmade crafts. The hum of polite greetings and careful exchanges filled the air softly, never rushing. The smell of fresh bread and roasted coffee or grains mingled with morning air, crafting a subtle symphony of scents that invited calm. Craftsmen often started their workdays with slow preparation. Blacksmiths arranged their tools and stoked fires carefully, ensuring the correct heat for shaping metal. Weavers set up looms with meticulous attention, threading fibers patiently. Each step was performed with a deliberate slowness, a meditation in motion that turned raw materials into objects of function and beauty. The early hours were often used for communal gathering and discussion. Elders and leaders met quietly to plan or reflect, their conversations measured and thoughtful. The pace was slow, the tone respectful, reflecting a culture of listening and wisdom. These meetings were less about urgency and more about shared understanding and steady guidance. Animals on farms and in villages were tended with gentle routines. Feeding, milking, or herding was done with care to avoid startling creatures. The sounds of animals, low moos, clucks, and soft bleats, blended with human voices, creating a comforting soundscape of life intertwined. The slow pace ensured welfare and harmony between people and animals. Schooling and apprenticeship took place in quiet, focused environments. Young learners absorbed lessons slowly, practicing reading, writing, or crafting under patient guidance. The repetition of drills, copying texts, or shaping clay taught not only skills but also discipline and attention. These gentle rhythms fostered deep learning and respect for knowledge. Religious rituals in the morning were often subtle and slow. Offerings were prepared with care, small bowls of grain, flowers, or incense arranged meticulously on altars. The chanting of prayers was measured, rhythmic, inviting contemplation rather than haste. These moments created a sacred space within the ordinary flow of daily life. As the sun rose higher, midday approached with a gentle warmth. People sought shaded places for rest and nourishment. Meals were taken slowly, conversations were low, and moments of pause allowed the body and mind to prepare for the afternoon. The slow pace here honored the natural cycle of work and rest. Water played a vital role throughout the day. Wells and fountains were visited regularly, their slow, deliberate drawing of water a crucial task. The sound of water pouring into containers or splashing into basins offered a calm, steady presence, a reminder of life's essential flow. Agricultural work continued steadily but unhurriedly. Tending fields, planting or harvesting was done with respect for the earth's pace. The rhythm of these tasks mirrored the seasons and weather, blending human effort with natural cycles in a slow, sustaining dance. In some regions, midday brought moments of cultural practice. Music, poetry, or storytelling performed softly in homes or public spaces. These art forms were gentle and soothing, designed to offer rest for the spirit and mind. Their slow, repetitive patterns invited relaxation and reflection. The heat of midday encouraged slower movements and occasional rest. Workers paused beneath trees or in cool rooms, their breathing steady, bodies relaxed. These breaks were essential, preserving energy and focus for later tasks. The stillness was as important as activity, a balance deeply understood. Communication between neighbors was often brief but polite, marked by nods or soft greetings. This subtle social rhythm maintained community bonds without disrupting the calm flow of the day. These small interactions were threads weaving the social fabric gently and securely. Preparation for evening meals often began in the afternoon. Ingredients were gathered, fires prepared, and cooking vessels readied. These actions were slow and attentive, the kitchen a place of quiet anticipation. The smells that would soon fill homes promised comfort and nourishment as the afternoon waned, shadows lengthened, softening the landscape. The light shifted to warm hues, creating a peaceful, inviting atmosphere. People moved with calm deliberation, aware of the coming night and its gentle demands for rest and quiet. Evening rituals of cleaning and tidying helped prepare homes for night. Floors were swept, fires banked, and lamps checked to ensure they would burn steadily. These routines were practiced with care, an unspoken recognition of the night's importance in restoring order and calm. Social gatherings in the evening were slow and intimate. Families and friends shared stories and food in low voices, the flickering light of lamps creating cozy spaces for connection. Laughter was rare but cherished, a soft punctuation in the otherwise calm dialogue. As darkness deepened, nightfall brought a collective slowing of pace. The world grew quiet except for the natural sounds of night. Gentle breezes, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of nocturnal animals. This tranquil soundscape cradled the world in stillness, inviting rest and renewal. The approach of early morning in ancient settlements was marked by a gentle stirring of life. The sky shifted from deep indigo to soft grays as stars gradually faded. The faint chorus of birdsong began, a slow herald of the new day. Villagers and townsfolk moved with measured steps, preparing to greet the sun. The world seemed to hold its breath in this transitional moment. In many households, morning chores started with the tending of hearth fires. Embers were carefully stirred to bring warmth and light, the crackling sound soft and comforting. The preparation of breakfast was deliberate, grinding grain, fetching water, and lighting cooking fires, all performed with calm precision. These tasks grounded the day in routine and rhythm. Outside, animals were gently roused from sleep. Shepherds called quietly to their flocks, and the low bleating and rustling created a soothing symphony of life awakening. The careful care of animals was a patient art, ensuring their health and readiness for the work ahead. The bond between human and animal in these moments was quiet and profound. The communal wells or water sources became centers of slow social interaction. Women and men gathered, filling vessels and exchanging news or greetings in soft voices. The rhythmic splash of water and the clink of clay jars were part of a familiar pattern, weaving connection into daily necessity. These exchanges were as much about community as about water. Markets began their slow awakening, vendors arranging goods with thoughtful care. The colors of fresh produce, woven textiles and crafted goods created a muted palette under the morning light. Bargaining was gentle and unhurried, with polite nods and measured words. This atmosphere fostered trust and relationship rather than urgency. Artisans prepared their tools and materials, potters checked the moisture of their clay, painters mixed pigments patiently, and carpenters measured and cut with steady hands. The slow preparation was an integral part of creation, emphasizing quality and mindfulness over speed. This reverence for process was reflected in the final work's enduring beauty. In the quiet moments of early day, spiritual practices were often observed. Small altars were dusted and offerings made with reverence. The scent of incense wafted softly, mingling with the earth's fresh morning smell. These acts were gentle acknowledgments of divine presence, connecting the mundane with the sacred in a slow, intentional way. Education for the young began with the repetition of simple lessons. Letters, numbers, or songs were practiced with patience, each mistake met with calm correction. This steady rhythm of learning cultivated endurance and focus, allowing knowledge to embed slowly over time. The gentle pace ensured that no detail was overlooked. Farming activities were dictated by natural light and weather, each movement deliberate. Ploughing, planting, or weeding was done in a measured flow, mindful of the soil's needs and the plant's cycles. This harmonious relationship between human effort and natural growth was a quiet testament to balance and respect. Religious leaders or community elders often took time in the morning for reflection or consultation. Their voices were calm and measured as they offered guidance or blessings. These interactions shaped the community's path with thoughtfulness, emphasizing wisdom and patience over haste. As the day progressed, midday brought a slowing of activity. People retreated to shaded areas or homes to avoid the heat. These moments of rest were essential, a deliberate pause in the day's rhythm to preserve energy and well-being. The quiet hum of insects and occasional bird calls accompanied this stillness. In the kitchens, food preparation continued with gentle care. Grains were ground, vegetables chopped, and broths simmered slowly over low fires. The smells wafted through homes, creating a sense of comfort and anticipation. Cooking was an art of patience, with each step building toward nourishment. Throughout towns and villages, quiet social visits were exchanged. Neighbors met briefly to share news or support, their voices soft and kind. These small interactions were woven into the fabric of daily life, fostering connection and solidarity without intrusion. Crafting activities often moved into the afternoon, with weavers, tailors, and metalworkers continuing their steady work. The repetitive motions created a meditative atmosphere, with the focus on technique and care rather than speed. The resulting products reflected this dedication, marked by durability and subtle beauty. Public spaces saw slow-paced gatherings or religious observances. Prayers, songs, or readings were performed with reverence, their tones gentle and unhurried. These communal acts reinforced shared values and traditions, grounding the community in stability and continuity. As afternoon faded, shadows lengthened, bathing the world in warm hues. The changing light invited reflection and preparation for evening. People moved with quiet intention, finishing tasks and readying their homes for nightfall. This transition was as much about mindset as activity. A shift toward calm evening meals were prepared slowly, the kitchen filled with soft light and comforting aromas. Families gathered around tables to eat mindfully, savoring flavors and companionship. The pace of dining was unhurried, a time to nurture both body and relationships. The onset of night brought a noticeable drop in temperature and noise. Animals settled, and human activity slowed significantly. Lamps were lit one by one, their gentle glow creating intimate spaces within darkened rooms. The interplay of shadow and light lent a peaceful ambience to homes and streets. Nighttime rituals often involved quiet prayer, reading, or reflection. Individuals sought calm and clarity before sleep, engaging in routines that soothed the mind and spirit. These practices were simple but profound, offering structure and reassurance. As the village or city settled into night, the natural world sounds became more prominent. The soft rustling of leaves, distant calls of nocturnal creatures, and gentle wind created a soothing soundscape. This ambient chorus was a reminder of life's persistent presence, even in stillness. In the quiet hours just before sunrise, watchmen would patrol the streets with lanterns in hand. Their footsteps echoed softly against stone roads, their pace steady, unhurried. Occasionally, they would pause to adjust their cloaks or whisper greetings to another passing sentinel. The gentle flicker of oil lamps against alley walls was the only movement in the stillness, a quiet assurance that all was well. The roofs of ancient homes often bore witness to the first signs of morning. Birds gathered on tiles, preening in silence, while the last stars faded above them. From narrow chimneys, faint plumes of smoke rose into the crisp dawn air, evidence that someone had stirred inside, stoking a fire for warmth or food. These details, so often overlooked, mark the slow but inevitable turning of another day. Within humble dwellings, the first sounds of stirring were soft and familiar. A wooden door creaked open, a clay cup clinked on a stone counter. Hands washed in cold basin water with practiced movements. These small acts, repeated countless times, formed the invisible spine of ancient domestic life. Their quiet dignity lay not in drama but in repetition. The morning meal in ancient times was rarely extravagant. A piece of bread dipped in olive oil, a few figs, perhaps a cup of warm water or diluted wine. Meals were taken sitting low to the ground, often in silence or quiet conversation. The food nourished not just the body but served as a slow initiation into the waking world. In larger towns, the temple bells or horns sounded softly in the distance, calling the faithful to prayer or meditation. Robed figures walked slowly through stone corridors, their sandals brushing the ground in rhythm. They passed through shaded courtyards where incense hung in the air and sunlight filtered through tall columns. These moments were designed to transcend the ordinary, yet they moved with the same deliberate slowness. Many communities held sunrise rituals, not for spectacle, but to honor routine. A stone rolled away from a shrine door, a basin filled with fresh water, or the lighting of a sacred candle. These rites were ancient and precise, their timing aligned with celestial rhythms. Each movement, each breath, reinforced the connection between people, land, and sky. In rural areas, farmers ventured into their fields in silence, often alone. They would pause before entering the soil, scanning the landscape as if listening to it. The rustle of tall grasses, the distant bray of a donkey, the creak of a wooden gate. These were the sounds of a world alive, yet slow. The plough cut the earth with a gentle sigh, turning centuries of labor beneath the sun. The tools of ancient life were simple but sacred. A clay pot passed from one generation to the next, worn but whole. A wooden stool carved by a father for his daughter. These objects, unremarkable to modern eyes, held memory and weight. They were handled with care, repaired with patience, and placed just so, because that is how it had always been done. Even the walls of ancient buildings bore the passage of time. Each stone bore marks of wear, a chipped corner soot from fires, long past, the faint imprint of a thumb where plaster had been smoothed. These imperfections told quiet stories of those who had walked here before, never loudly, never directly, but always honestly. In the late morning, the community buzzed. With modest energy, markets stirred with quiet trade. Children played near fountains, their voices light and echoing. There was no rush, no announcements, just life unfolding at its own tempo. A cartwheel creaked. A merchant hummed to himself while arranging jars. The ordinary became beautiful in its constancy. Public scribes sat beneath shaded archways, writing letters or recording grain counts for those who could not write. Their styluses scratched gently against wax or papyrus. The pace was glacial, yet deliberate. Words mattered. Each stroke, each pause between sentences reflected the weight of communication in a world where nothing was instant. At midday, the heat demanded stillness. Workers leaned against shaded walls, cloaks pulled over their faces, water skins were shared, hands wiped slowly across tired brows. Even animals slept. In this hour, nothing moved quickly, because nothing had to. The world exhaled and rested, just as it had for centuries. Inside homes, fabrics were mended in the afternoon light. Needles passed slowly through cloth, thread pulling taut with soft resistance. The work was repetitive, but not meaningless. Each stitch carried the presence of its maker, perhaps a grandmother, humming softly, her hands moving with a memory older than her. As shadows lengthened, streets took on a golden hue, walls glowed amber. Trees rustled gently in the wind, their leaves curling in preparation for night. In this in-between time, some gathered to read, others to rest. There was no ceremony, no rush, only the quiet dignity of a day nearing its close. In wealthier homes, servants began the evening ritual of drawing water for baths. Steam rose slowly from clay basins, oils were mixed and warmed by hand, towels hung over carved wooden racks carefully placed. These tasks, though menial, were performed with a silent sense of pride. Cleanliness was not just physical, it was spiritual, mental, social. Lanterns were lit one by one, their flames flickering with caution against the breeze. A hush settled over communities. Voices dropped, footsteps slowed. It was as though the world collectively agreed to prepare for slumber, not out of weariness, but out of reverence for rest. Evening meals were served warm but simple. Stewed lentils, grilled onions, flatbreads and cheese, perhaps wine, perhaps silence. Families gathered not for entertainment, but for presence. They spoke slowly, if at all, their bodies relaxed, their thoughts unburdened by haste. These meals were not about fullness, but about togetherness. Before bed, elders would often tell stories, slowly, meandering, perhaps never finishing. Tales of old kings, of lost rivers, of wars that had ended before their grandfather's birth. The purpose was not the ending, but the telling. The rhythm of words was enough. It lulled children and adults alike into a calm beyond words. Finally, one by one, lights went out. Cloaks were folded. Floors were swept once more. Doors latched gently. And the night took over, not as a threat, but as a balm. Even in darkness, life continued at its own patient pace. The stars blinked above just as they had in every century before.